Good morning. Hey, man, I'm so glad we get to be together today. We are finishing up a series today that's called Good Money and Good Time. And it's all about how followers of Jesus should use their money and should use their time for good things. And really, the best of things. Things like spreading the good news about Jesus. Things like bringing people into God's kingdom. So what we want to do is we want to use our money and we want to use our time in good, if not great, ways. So what we did in order to kind of drive this point home is last week we were talking about our time and how we should spend our energy and serving others. We said this, that you should spend your time in good ways to show others a good God. Right? You can say all the things you want to say, but until other people see you doing these things in good ways, it's not going to matter. If you want to show others a good God, you need to spend your time in good ways. And that applies to a whole host of things, right? It means treating my family well when people are around and when they're not around. Because you want to show your family God at the same time. You're not just trying to show that neighbor, that heathen neighbor across the street, right? The one that plays his AC/DC too loud on Saturday mornings when you're trying to sleep in a little bit, right? You want to show them Jesus, but you also want to show your kids Jesus too. When nobody else is around, you want to show your parents Jesus, the same thing. Now, we also, in addition to spending our time well, we want to spend our money well. We want to use our money in the right way. So the week before last, we talked about money. And we said this, give until it hurts, then give some more. Because that was the ethic of giving in the early church. The first generation of Christians, this is what they did. They didn't say, okay, I got to give 7%, and that's all I'm going to be. I've got to give 10% every time, or else I'm going to feel obligated to do something else and go say a few Hail Marys over here or something like that. That's not how they worked. They said, we're going to give as much as we possibly can. In a radical way, they chose that they are going to give as much as they possibly could. For some of them, that was like 1% of their income. For others, it was like 90% of their income. I don't know what it is for you, but what I would say for you is as you're looking at giving your money in good ways and giving so that other people might come to a saving knowledge of who Jesus is and so that other people might live lives that aren't in destitution, I would say this, give until it hurts and then give some more. Because there was a time when people were serving others and giving others, that these first generations of Jesus followers, that they gave until it hurt and that they spent their time on good things. There was a time when they did that in such a way that it drew thousands of people to Christ because it was a totally foreign concept. It was a paradigm-shifting concept when these people came on the scene. People were excited to move into neighborhoods that were populated by Christians. They saw the Christians as atheists by and large. They saw the Christians as wrongdoers, people who had departed from the way. But they couldn't get past the fact that these same Christians, the ones that they had all these negative feelings about, the ones that they heard these rumors about, that these same Christians were adopting babies that other people had left for dead. That these same Christians were busy going around and caring for the sick. That these same Christians were making sure that nobody around them was going hungry that night. That these same Christians made sure everybody had a place to stay. That they were willing to sell their own possessions to take care of other people that lived around them. And I wonder sometimes, what would happen if you and I and other Jesus followers around the world, if we were known for that type of radical generosity and service? Oh, I think it'd be a good thing. I think it'd be a great thing. So we're going to continue talking today a little bit about what happens when we have good money and good time. Maybe now's a good time for me to say this. Welcome back, everybody who's here for Thanksgiving. If you've come into town for Thanksgiving, we're glad you're here. We're also thankful that all of our kids are here in the room with us, yeah? Right, adults? We're ready for our, yeah. Yeah, all right, so show of hands. Who says Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday? Oh, all right, some enthusiasm. There we go. All right. So this is my mom's favorite holiday. She loves Thanksgiving. I've always been more of a Christmas guy myself. I never understood how she could love Thanksgiving so much when you don't even get presents or anything. Come on. All right, now I need to say this. It's not all about presents, everybody, right? But no, I always loved Christmas more. My mom loved Thanksgiving. I think it was because it was the only time of the year when it wasn't the hustle and bustle of things. It was a holiday, but there wasn't a lot of hustle and bustle around it. We all got together. There was football on TV. There was food in the kitchen, that sort of thing. I don't know about you, but my family at Thanksgiving's got pretty loud. Like really loud, because we're basically just loud people in general. We're those people. We're the people that we go to a movie. Don't go to a movie theater with me and my family ever, because we are loud. We're the ones that we're standing there and we're sitting there, and it's a serious part of the movie, and we're trying to make jokes about the film as it's going on because we think it's funny, and we're trying to make everybody else laugh at the same time and each other. But even if they don't, we're still going to make that joke because we think it's funny. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're those people. We go out to eat at restaurants, and it's magically somebody's birthday again. We're those people. We like it. So when it's football time and there's Thanksgiving and there's food, like, we are excited, and there's yelling at the Dallas Cowboys because every year they disappointed us. Always, there's all that. And then you add in there's like 15 or 11 billion grandkids in our family, and it got loud. Every year. It was a loud thing. And maybe your family is like that too. Maybe you're already thinking about Thanksgiving and you're packing your earplugs for the occasion. But for us, it was always like that. Maybe yours was too, and for different reasons. Every year I hear from friends or you see online that there's this conversation with that one uncle who shows up and just can't stop with the hot takes about current social stuff. Right? They're like, hey, we should have supported this candidate, or it was a good thing we supported this candidate over here. And they want to talk politics at the Thanksgiving dinner table. Even when you move them to the kids' table, they want to talk with the kids. And everybody's like, hey, quit that. Quit doing that. Then you have that one aunt who's acting strange, and it just becomes a whole issue, and somebody confronts somebody else, and it can get really awkward, if not just loud. Well, in light of all of that, I was thinking as we approach this Thanksgiving, that it'd be smart for us to talk about another holiday meal that took place about 2,000 years ago that kind of got awkward, at the very least got really serious really fast. On one of his last nights, Jesus had dinner with his disciples, and it wasn't just any other meal. This was a meal. It was an important meal. Not because they got takeout from a very important restaurant or a very expensive restaurant, but because it was the Passover meal. I don't know if you know much about the Passover meal in Jewish tradition, but it is the holiest of holy days. And this is a time when they would come together and they would remember how God brought their people out of Israel. This was a time for family. It was a time for community. It was a time for remembering what God had done in their people and how God had covenanted with them. And that's an amazing thing to be able to do. That's an amazing thing to be able to come together and to do that. Well, they're having this meal. Imagine, it's very similar to Thanksgiving in that regard, that you're coming together to give thanks for what God has done and to remember what's happened. Well, Jesus sat down with the people he was closest to in the world. And he sits down with them to have this meal, and they start eating. And that's what we're going to pick up in John's biography. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Yes, that Judas, the one who you probably heard about before, who ends up betraying Jesus. What's crazier is we find out later, Jesus already knows that Judas is going to betray him. He already knows, before the meal ever starts, he knows that Judas is going to betray him. Jesus knows something else too, verse 3. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So Jesus knows that Judas has betrayed him, but he's confident enough because he knows that he's going back to God and that God has got this. God has this under control. He's confident in this moment. So what does he do? And in this moment, when he's confident that nothing Judas does is going to get him off track, that nothing anybody does is going to get him off track, what does he do? So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. Now this is kind of like his rabbinical robe. This is what they knew him to be. Like these are his clothes, his raiments, if you will. He got up from the meal, took that off, and wrapped a towel around his waist. This was the clothing, this was the outfit of a servant of the house. Things are getting weird. That's a strange move to make. See, he's the leader. He's not just any leader. He's not just the most popular guy in the group. He's the rabbi. He's the teacher. He's the pastor. He's the whatever you want to call him. He's the religious leader. And in those days, that was a really, really big deal. A really, really big deal. For him to take that thing off at all in front of them is a big deal. But for him to do that and then get dressed like a servant, all of their eyes were glued to him, wondering, what is wrong with Jesus? What's wrong with this guy? Here's what he does next. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet. Who likes washing other people's feet? Let me describe these. Maybe if I describe the feet to you, you'll change your mind. These were feet that belonged to grown men. Any takers? Not only were they grown men, they were probably hairy grown man feet who wore sandals everywhere they went. Huh? Oh, and in those days, it's a really, really dusty walk. It wasn't like they were walking around Disneyland on perfectly manicured grass or with like nice sidewalks where Imagineers or whatever they're called come by and like get all the trash. No, they were walking down dusty roads and down streets where human refuse flowed through the streets. Nasty feet. Jesus, God in flesh, the King of all kings, the Prince of all peace, the Lord of lords, who broke out of eternity and into time and space to come be with us, demeans himself enough to start looking like a servant and washing 12 nasty pairs of feet. Exactly. Exactly. He starts washing their feet. And they all had the same reaction. Ew. Why are you doing this? But Jesus was demeaning himself. He was breaking all the social customs, all the social norms, doing all the things that he wasn't supposed to do. You're not allowed to do this, Jesus. And I don't know if you know this, if you've ever been around where you've actually washed somebody else's feet, it's actually a really beautiful experience. It's a very humbling experience, whether you're the person washing feet or having your feet washed. It's a very humbling experience, and you kind of want to say something, but you kind of don't because you don't want to mess up the mood. But, like I said, me and my family, we crack jokes in those moments. It's awkward. But Jesus washes their feet. Because this is what you did for people who were your honored guests. This is what you did for people you loved and wanted to impress. He washes their feet on the last night on earth. He's looking up at them. And as you might expect, it takes a little bit of while to wash the feet of 12 other people. Gives you enough time to squirm if you're one of those people waiting to get your feet washed. So he makes his way around. He washes Thomas's feet. He washes James's feet. He even washes Judas's feet. The guy who's going to betray him, he sits and washes that guy's nasty feet. And then he makes his way over to Peter. And Peter says, no thanks. No thanks. You can't wash my feet, Jesus. You can't wash my feet. You don't get to do that. Because you're the King of Kings. You're the Lord of Lords. You're the rabbi. You're the teacher. You're the one we're following. That's not how this works. And Jesus says, I am going to wash your feet because if you don't let me, you have no part of me. Because at the heart of what Peter's saying there when he says, you don't get to wash my feet, you don't wash my feet, at the heart of that is him saying, I don't want to have to wash anybody else's feet when I'm the leader. You ever think about that? If you won't let your leader wash your feet, what you're kind of saying is, when I'm the leader, I don't want to have to wash feet either. And so when Jesus says, no, you're going to let me wash your feet, otherwise you have no part of me, Peter looks back at him and says, well, then wash all of me, Jesus. Wash every part of me, because I want all of you that I can get. So Jesus continues washing their feet, and they go back to eating at the table. They all eat, yes, including Judas, the one who betrays him. Even Judas got to eat, even though Jesus already knows. And eventually Judas gets up and leaves. And as Jesus is saying, hey, one of you is going to betray me, everybody looks around and says, well, who's it going to be? And he goes, well, it's the guy who's sitting over here. And somehow none of them get it at that moment. Like none of them understand, like when Jesus is doing this number, that it's him. They just think he runs off to do some kind of errand or something. And he's left with his 11 other disciples. And he begins talking about, look, I'm going away. I'm going away from you. I'm gone. Don't worry about things, though, because God has this under control. And understandably, they're all going, wait a second, where are you going? We've left everything to follow you. We believe you're the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. We believe you're the Son of God. We believe all of those things. Where are you going? How could things possibly go bad? And he says, yes, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I'm leaving. I've been betrayed. And they're like, no. He says, but don't worry. God's in control. And God's going to give you what you need to get through the next phase because God's doing something amazing. That's exactly what you want to hear in that moment, right? If you're a disciple and you're hearing that your whole world is about to be turned upside down, that's what you want to hear. When you've gone through tragedy, when you've gone through terrible moments in your life, what you wanted to hear from somebody was, don't worry, God's in control. Isn't that right? No. It's upsetting because it almost seems like a cop-out, doesn't it? But friends, it's not a cop-out. It's true. Even in those moments, God is with you. God is walking through those moments with you. God hasn't abandoned you. God hasn't forgotten you. Just like God didn't forget those disciples, those apostles there when Jesus was talking to them. Just like them, God never left them or forsaken them. God was with them, even in that moment, especially in that moment. So Jesus keeps talking to him. He says, look, I'm going away, so I need you to do something for me. He says this, if you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. So if you want to remain in me, you better keep my commands. Now he's going to tell us what those commands look like. But he says this first, I have told you this so that my joy may be in you. So if you follow Jesus' commands, you will have joy. There will be joy in your heart and your life. And that your joy may be complete. Do you want a full joy? Do you want a complete joy? Do you want a joy that kind of surpasses understanding of those around you? Do you want joy that seems impossible? Follow Jesus' commands. And here's his command. My command is this, love each other as I have loved you. Would you read that part with me? Just love each other. Say this with me. Love each other as I have loved you. That's his command. If you want joy, if you want complete, if you want full joy, Jesus says, do this. Love each other as I have loved you. Well, he just washed their feet. He just washed their feet. He just fed them. What they don't know is what comes next. All they know is that Jesus has said, I'm going away. I've been betrayed. I'm going away. And that he washed their feet at dinner. And they know that he's always taken the low place when they reflected on things, that Jesus has always taken the low place. He never looked for a seat of honor. He never looked to be the king over the Roman emperor or anybody else that was around him. What he did was he always took the low place. He could have demanded everybody respect him. He could have demanded everybody follow him and do what he wants to do. That's not how he worked. And here he is saying, love each other as I have loved you. If you want this joy that I'm talking about, then love each other as I have loved you. He goes on and he says this, greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. Greater love has no one than to lay down your life. Now, we if you're on this side of things, you kind of understand the message of Jesus right here, right? This is the foreshadowing of what's to come very, very soon. He's laying down his life for them, the ones who follow him, the ones who do what he commands. He's laying down his life for you, the one who is doing what he commands. He's laying down his life. He says, no greater love do you have than that. And we know this, right? We talk sometimes around and just in culture about that person who was willing to step in front of a speeding bullet for another person. We talk about soldiers sometimes who are willing to lay down their life for their platoon or whatever. And we lift that up, and rightly so, as a virtue that somebody was willing to lay down their life for somebody else. And here's Jesus saying it again. Lay down your life for your friends. Do what I command. But that's not the only way you can lay your life down for somebody. Dying isn't the only way you do that. Sometimes the way you lay down your life for somebody else is to live in the way Jesus called you to live. To serve them. To give to them. Sometimes it looks a little bit different. It's saying, I want all this stuff. I want to use all of my money for all the things that I want. I want to go on this vacation, and I want to eat at this restaurant, and I want to do it 7 times a week, and I want to go to this thing, and I want to go over here, and I want to go to that play, and I want to go to this thing, and I want to go all over. Sometimes it's saying, I'm not going to do those things so that other people might come to know Jesus. So that other people might have a place to stay tonight when it's cold. So that other people might not go hungry this evening. That's what Jesus is talking about when he says, be willing to lay down your life for others. That's what he commands. If you want to have joy, if you want to be somebody who can count Jesus as a friend, that's the type of life you live, where you give for others' sake and you serve others, even when you don't have to. Even when they're actively out to get you, like Judas betraying Jesus. Don't forget that. Don't let that skip over you. Because it's real easy to serve people we like and to serve people we pity. It's real easy to give to things and other people that we like and to give for other people we pity. It's really difficult to do that for people who make us mad and who are out to get us. But Jesus says, no, no, no. They get to eat too. And they get their feet washed too. The early church, the first generation of Christians, they understood this really well. They understood that they had to be willing to take care of others, that they had to be willing to serve, that they had to be willing to give. And that's why Paul, one of the biggest leaders in the early church, writes this to a young pastor named Timothy, and he says this, command them, talking about the people of the church, to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. You want to follow Jesus? This is what it looks like. Because he understands, Paul understands fully that if you can't master the impulse to hoard your resources and just live however suits you in that moment and do whatever you want to do, then you can't love the way that Jesus said love. You've got to be able to master that impulse, he says. And if you can't love just when it comes to things, like learning to give your money for others people's sake and to spend time serving them, if you can't give in that way, you're going to have a hard time really loving others. Because he understands this truth, and I'm going to leave this with you. I want you to take this away with you. Our bottom line today is this, that giving and serving is love in action. You can talk about love all you want. You can talk about how you love this person and you love that person. But until you do something with it, until love becomes a verb in addition to being a noun, it doesn't matter. Because if all you ever do is talk about how you love somebody, but you never do anything with it, you're just fooling yourself and trying to pull the wool over everybody else's eyes too. That's not how it works. See, the truth is this, that what you give to and how you serve reveal who you really love. What you give to and how you serve reveal who you really love. If everything's about you, guess who you really love? If everything's about God's kingdom, guess who you really love? If you love God and if you love God's people, if you are committed to God's kingdom, then what you're going to be doing is being committed to serving and to giving towards that end. That's the trick of it all, right there. We can say that we love all we want, but if we don't do something with it, it doesn't matter. I can say I love my wife all I want, and I do. But if I don't serve her, if I don't give up what I want for what she wants, at least every once in a while, then it doesn't matter, does it? It doesn't matter what I say. It matters what I do. When I was in college and in seminary, I served as a volunteer youth pastor in a church that we started. We planted this church in Waco. It still exists today. I'm pretty proud of that. It's called Grace Family Church. And we were a small church. Planting a church is hard, by the way. It was a difficult thing. And we looked up and we said, okay, we're about a year in. We said, we need to get a youth group going. Well, there's only one problem. We had 0 kids in our youth group, like none. No teenagers at all, except for one. And it was the pastor's daughter. She was in 7th grade. She's like a little sister to me. And so we decided we'll start there. So we made up these letters on church letterhead, which we just kind of made of our own accord in Microsoft Word or something like that. And we took them up. We got them signed by our pastor, and we took them up, and they let us eat lunch with kids we'd never met. So we go out, and we try to find the dorkiest group of 7th graders we can find and sit with them at lunch. That was our whole plan. And so we went and we sat with the dorkiest group of 7th graders we could find at lunch. And it was awesome because they didn't tell us to leave. Everybody else was looking at us all suspiciously, but they said, yeah, sit here and talk. And so these guys that we ended up sitting with, they were all metalheads. They were really into Metallica and any other band you could think of, and then some you can't. Like they were really, really into it. And they wore suspenders and white T-shirts and stuff like that. They were a blast. And one of these guys ended up becoming a really integral part of our church. Ended up playing bass in our church worship team and everything like that. But all of these guys have eventually ended up in our youth group. Well, the kid who became an integral part of our church, his family started coming to church. They were on the verge of divorce. They started coming to church with us. And next thing I know, I've become pretty good friends with them. And they're going out of their way to do things for me, which was a totally foreign experience to this 19-year-old youth pastor guy. So we'd go out to eat for lunch every Sunday. We'd go out to eat after. And, being in college and in seminary, I didn't have any money. I was lucky to have any money. So I would usually just go for the free chips and salsa. You didn't have to pay for that. Somebody else may, if you had to pay, somebody else was like, I got it, don't worry. But they started paying for my lunch every Sunday. I got a big old burrito like that at this place called Jalisco's. It was awesome. Every Sunday, they made sure. And if they were around and we were eating somewhere else on any other day, they'd pay for it then too. And one time, my car broke down because I was always having car problems. My car broke down, and I didn't know what to do. And I called my friend, the dad, and because he was a mechanic and he knew different things about stuff, a shade tree mechanic. But he knew different things. I said, hey, do you know anybody who has a tow truck that can come out here for real cheap and pick my car up? He goes, where are you at? I said, well, I'm over here. I'm about 20 minutes away. He goes, stay there. He comes by and he gets me, and he brings a flatbed trailer with him. And he puts my car up on there, takes me back to his house, gives me the keys to this other car that I didn't even know they had, and he says, you drive this until this car's fixed. I'm going to get it fixed. I said, no, I can't. And he says, you will. He was a big guy, so I had to listen to him. And he got that car fixed for me. I never paid a dime for it. He let me drive that truck around. I remember driving off from their house in tears. They're just bawling, man. And I'm not really an emotional guy like that, but like just bawling because these people said, I'm going to show you what love in action looks like. I'm not going to just talk about it. I'm not going to tell you how appreciative I am for what you've done for my son and for my family, even though they did always tell me that. They showed me what it looked like. Friends, if you want to tell people you love them, show them what it looks like by giving and serving them. By giving to them and serving to them. If you want to tell people you love this world and you want everybody to know Jesus, and I hope you do, then give toward that end. Serve toward that end. Look, if we're just talking about in church, you know what I'm going to say probably. You need to give consistently a percentage of your income. That's what you need to do. If you want to give here in church life, you need to do that. And you need to serve on a team. But you need to serve on a team. Be involved in some team here, whether it's the coffee team, the worship team, the kids ministry team, whatever. You need to serve on a team, a global missions team, whatever. Serve on a team. But expand beyond the walls of this church. Get out into the community and do something with what you've been given by the God of the universe. Why wouldn't you go and volunteer at the Christian Service Center? Why wouldn't you mentor at a local school? Why wouldn't you help coach a Little League team? Why wouldn't you do any of those things? Why not? Why not give of the abundance that God has given you? If you want joy, Jesus says, you'll be giving and you'll be serving. Let's pray together. Lord, you have given us so much to be thankful for, especially as we head into Thanksgiving. I pray for everyone listening to the sound of my voice in this moment, that you would help us to be thankful and help us to show our gratitude by loving others through serving them and giving toward their need, whether that need be a physical one or a spiritual one. Help us to follow you by giving to others and serving others. Give us the courage, give us the strength to deny ourselves so that others might have a more abundant life in you. Help us to show the world what love is, not just talk about it, but to show the goodness of God, the love of God through the way we live our lives, that all might become sons and daughters of the Most High God. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.